Hello, I'm Robert, and so I've tried, in my previous videos, I've appealed first of all to the idea of rational trust, where you go and look at people, and if you find people are continually making mistakes in the things they say, and you try and follow up their sources, then you know that they're not reliable people to read. And this is true of all these Planet X videos especially. They say a whole lot of nonsense that you can easily go and check, and just by following up go to the debunking sites, follow up the things they say. Don't try and believe the debunking sites as they are. Look at their sources. If it's about someone's death, go and look at the obituary, and they will link to it from the debunking sites, and then you can compare that with what these other sites say. So you don't need to worry, do I trust them or do I trust the debunking sites? You can go and look at the actual sources that they claim to be quoting from, and you can find that they got it wrong. So I talked about that, and then I talked about how the ideas anyway, they just don't fit common sense. And how could they possibly be that you have a planet with living beings like us living on them that spend most of the time so far away from the Earth, from the Sun, that it's as cold that the nitrogen in the air becomes ice. And then it comes in so hot, if it was so close to the Sun you can't see it, then it would be so hot that the rock would be boiling. I mean, just a little bit of common sense about this. So I tried appealing to common sense and to rational trust. But for some of you, that is not enough. And then you come back and you're saying to me, I still don't, you're saying the debunking sites, the Planet X people are telling us not to believe what the people say in the debunking sites and not listen to this debunking. Well, why do you believe what they say when they say not to believe us? And I'm not saying not to believe what they say, I'm saying check what they say. And then check what we say, and then see which, follow up the sources. You'll find all the things they say are nonsense. And you can check most of them yourself. And you find they made mistakes if you follow up the links and go behind the scenes and do like what a journalist would do. But anyway, so there's one last thing that I want to talk about. If neither of those things work for you yet, then the last thing is, is it at all conceivable that astronomers worldwide are covering this up? So they say, just go and get your mobile phone and photograph the Sun, and you have a good chance of seeing an extra planet or an extra star, an extra sun. And they have lots of videos posted up by people who aren't amateur astronomers, aren't even amateur astronomers, and they've just picked up their mobile phone camera, they point it at the Sun, and they've seen a bright spot, and they say, I've seen Nibiru. And then these other sites are all sharing these, which show it in lots of different places, different sizes. Sometimes it's at right angles to the Sun, sometimes it's opposite side of the skies from the Sun, and there's sometimes a little speck near the Sun, sometimes a bigger speck, sometimes the same size as the Sun. And then say all of these are Nibiru. And then they say there's a big global conspiracy to hide this evidence of Nibiru. So I mean, again, a little bit of common sense there. Is it possible that there is something being hidden by a big conspiracy that has all these different, that is sometimes big, sometimes little, sometimes here, sometimes there, sometimes in the opposite direction again? How likely is that? And then just think a little bit more about that. Then, if you're an astronomer, imagine if I were to discover a new comet, then that would be the absolute highlight of the life of an astronomer's life, to discover a new comet or something like that as an astronomer. Now, I'm not an observational astronomer. I'm interested in armchair astronomy, like reading about things. But if I was an observational astronomer, that would be absolutely the most extraordinary thing in the highlight of all your astronomical, your entire life in astronomy, that you had discovered this new comet. And to discover a new asteroid is quite a big thing as well, and you get the comet or the asteroid named after you as well, or named after whoever you want him to be. It's unlike stars. It's one of the few things where you actually get to name these things. And now imagine if you were to discover a new planet or a new star, and you find, imagine, so I've told you about how this is totally impossible and nonsensical, but a lot of you can't understand why it would be so impossible. So I was just appealing to this other way of looking at it. So imagine if some astronomer that you would discover a new planet that nobody has yet discovered before over thousands of years. So it was a very big event when they discovered Uranus in the 18th century, they discovered Neptune in the 19th century, when they discovered Pluto in the 20th century. Now imagine if they discovered a Nibiru, or whatever you want to call it, in the 21st century. That would be a huge, impossible really to say how huge it would be to discover a planet close to the Sun that nobody's ever seen before. And never mind a star or an entire solar system. So now you're supposing that this whole thing is being hushed up by NASA because they don't want people to be scared. But okay, I mean, I've no reason at all to believe that NASA is hushing anything up. But some of you obviously find this convincing. But NASA aren't the monopoly of all the astronomy in the world. So what about the astronomers in India? What about all the amateur astronomers in the United States? What about the people in Africa, South Africa, or anywhere, even a small country in Africa, or the people, any of the countries in Europe, France, Germany, in United Kingdom, Norway, Denmark, Finland, Russia, Belarus. Any country will have its astronomers, and China, Japan, Korea, I don't know, just think of any country, and it's going to have its astronomers and astronomy and astronomy universities, people at universities studying astronomy, people with telescopes and amateur astronomers with telescopes. So if you can just get a mobile phone and photograph this planet, then do you not think that all these astronomers all over the world would be onto it as well? And is it possible that all these these people who haven't even ever looked through a telescope, most of them, and they just pick up their mobile phone, they take a photograph, and they spot this planet that nobody knew about before? And do we honestly think that these people, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, anywhere, any country you can think of, there'll be loads and loads of professional and amateur astronomers? And for any of those people, it would be the absolute highlight of their entire career, and indeed of their entire country. Their country would be known. There was a big, for instance, when Neptune was discovered, there was a big rivalry between England and France as to who would find the new planet first, because they thought there probably was a planet there. And then France won. I think it was France. Bavaria, yes. And the people, the astronomers in the UK, in England, were just so embarrassed that they'd almost found this new planet and they hadn't quite made it. So the entire country, I mean, if some astronomer, say in New Zealand, was to discover a new planet, that would be a big kudos for the entire country of New Zealand, that it was in their country that this astronomer lived who had found this new planet. So a new planet that's actually in our solar system, and it is actually near the Sun. So where the last place you'd expect to find a new planet, or a new star that was near the Sun, even more so. So then if you just think about that, I think just try and stop and think a little bit, and think, how likely is it that even if NASA had trillions of dollars that they were spending on it, there's some things that you just can't be paid off. No astronomer would, I think very few astronomers would accept even millions of dollars to hush up a discovery of even a new comet, and never mind a new planet or a star. So I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So that's appealing, because a lot of you may be like people who can understand people but don't understand science very much. So try thinking about how you understand people, and think, is it at all conceivable that nobody in the entire world, except these amateurs with their mobile phones, have been able to take photographs of this planet Nibiru, and that the only ones who are photographing it, the people who don't really understand planets very well, and that the ones who've been studying planets and stars and so on for their entire life, and for whom this would be the big discovery of their entire life, of their astronomy society, of their country, and it would be just the most amazing discovery ever. I can hardly say how important it would be if someone did discover a new planet. So, just another thought to leave you with, and how likely do you think that is? If you've got any other thoughts, do say on this, and try to be sure to check out my article. If you haven't read my article, if you just came to this via YouTube, do check out my article about Nibiru, the imaginary bullshit planet. And I've also put a few, or you could call it a humbug planet, depending if bullshit is a bit of a strong swear word in your part of the world. And do check out the other videos that I've put up on my YouTube channel about it. And please stop worrying about this totally silly, nonsensical thing. It's I can't even say it doesn't exist, because it's not clear what it is. It doesn't even make sense. And it doesn't fit together to make any kind of astronomical sense.